Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, it's back to court in North Andros tomorrow. Find out what the list of disputed voters is down to now as a voter planting hearing resumes. He may have escaped the death penalty, but the man accused of killing a teen girl didn't get off easy. Details of the resentencing for Maxo Tito straight ahead. And the long battle over a fast food industrial contract is finally over. All these stories and more straight ahead in the Bahamas tonight.
Covering the islands of the Bahamas, ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
Good evening and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report. I'm Kishla Adderley. Thanks for joining us. Topping the news tonight, he escaped the death penalty after the Privy Council's controversial conclusion that his crime, killing a 16-year-old girl whose body he rolled over with a vehicle and burned, was, quote, not the worst of the worst, end quote. Today, Maxo Tito was resentenced, and as Fern Carey tells us, his new sentence reflected the judge's reaction to his level of remorse and prison record since his conviction.
Senior Justice John Isaacs has sentenced convicted murderer Maxo Tito to 60 years in prison for the brutal 2006 murder of 16-year-old Donnell Conover. However, Tito, who's in his early 30s, will only have to spend 52 years of jail time, as Justice Isaacs took into consideration the 8 years Tito has already served. Before sentencing, a probation officer indicated that Tito was abandoned by his mother at a young age, raised by his brother, and does not know his father. Factors, she said, negatively impacted his development. And despite Tito's quiet disposition, she said the former barber and handyman was involved in gang-related activities, smoked marijuana, and continues to break prison rules. The probation officer also stressed that Tito maintains his innocence and only feels guilty about not returning Conover to a home after a night out. In his plea in mitigation, attorney Richard Boodle asked the court to give Tito a second chance to make restitution for what he did to the family and society, saying there is no evidence to support the fact that Tito cannot be rehabilitated. He also begged the court for leniency. In sentencing Tito, Senior Justice John Isaacs described Conover's death as being notoriously harsh, noting that the teen was induced from a home in the night and her body found the next day. He said circumstances also suggest she had been bludgeoned, a car rolled over her head, and her body burnt. And while the Privy Council says the court must take into consideration the progress made by a convict, Justice Isaacs noted that Tito still breached prison rules, something which does not suggest he's seriously considering rehabilitating himself or will comply with society's rules. Justice Isaacs also expressed concern that Tito did not take responsibility for the crime and only regrets not returning Conover home safely, saying, quote, I haven't found in you true remorse. He then handed down the 60-year sentence, taking off 8 years for time served. Tito began serving the sentence from this Thursday. In court, Conover's family rejoiced silently as the sentence was handed down. A mother told reporters the family can finally move on with their lives. Fern Carey, ZNS News.
Police have released the identity of the country's 26th homicide victim. He is 22-year-old Casno Major of Bow Avenue, Montel Heights. It was early yesterday morning when police responded to calls from members of the public who reported the body of a man lying face down on a track road off Coxway. Police didn't say how Major died and have no motive at this point. They're asking your help in solving this latest murder. Anyone with information is asked to contact police at 911-919 or 328-TIPS. 3 females and a male were arrested on drug possession charges after they were found with 60 pounds of marijuana yesterday. The arrest was made in the Eastern District of New Providence after police searched the group's vehicle. There, police found the drugs valued at about $60,000 on the street. An investigation is ongoing. That list of disputed Andros voters is getting shorter. ZNS News understands it's now down to 8 and could be even less by the time a voter planting hearing resumes in North Andros tomorrow. Meantime, the Progressive Liberal Party is criticizing the Free National Movement and Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham for revealing the identity of one of the people at the center of that reported voter planting hearing in North Andros. The PLP says it's nothing short of bullying. Shanique Miller has more.
The Progressive Liberal Party slamming the Free National Movement for violating a privacy order put in place by North Andros Administrator Huntley Christie regarding the North Andros voter planting hearing. In a news release issued today, the PLP says Prime Minister Ingraham violated the law of the returning officer, hitting what they called a new low. The statement further says the Prime Minister is well known for bullying his own MPs and well known for attempting to bulldoze those who disagree with him. The PLP says Ingraham now attempts to act as judge and jury on an issue in a blatant attempt to influence the decision maker and parliamentary commissioner, letting them know very publicly the outcome he is demanding. On Tuesday night, as Mr. Ingraham addressed a constituency opening in Carmichael, he called on F&Ms registered in a constituency anywhere in the country where they knowingly should not be registered to have their names transferred right away. The Prime Minister also addressed the first witness to appear on the North Andros hearing, a man who is a North Andros native and has investments going on the island and visits frequently. But the man has lived in and operates a business here in New Providence for many years. Here's what the Prime Minister said.
If you register in a constituency in which you do not live, for whatever reason, because you have ties in the area, because you were persuaded to do so, or because you were planted there, please go and have your registration transferred so that you're able to vote legitimately and have your vote counted where you live. I make this statement to all eligible voters. I do this to distinguish myself from Perry Christie, who claims that my call for people to act lawfully, to not corrupt our political process, is intimidating. It's not intimidating to say, obey the law. You know, people like Van Lock Fowler, of all-purpose steel, situated on East Street South, next to the teacher's salaried workers building near Ridgeland Park, should never have been allowed to register to vote in North Andros. He doesn't live there. He lives in Nassau like I do.
After the PLP's press release, many debated that it was the PLP who first identified the man. On Friday, outside the administrator's office, here's PLP lead attorney and deputy leader Philip Davis.
The law has changed. I mean, if a person has two residences, he could choose which one he wants to. Mr. Fowler, as you can hear on the evidence, he has two residences. This is not the first time he registered here. You heard evidence from one of the witnesses that he's voted at least 3 times here. They never challenged him, which is revealing. That as long as they worked, as long as he worked with them, they didn't challenge him. But as soon as he's decided, well, look, I've had enough of this, he then decides, well, now to challenge him. Yeah. Which reveals what's happening from that side.
Now, since last Friday, it appears that the list of 30 names has been shortened substantially. On Monday, we reported that 15 people had either transferred to another constituency or were in the process of transferring. Today, we understand an additional 5, 4 New Providence and 1 in Grand Bahama, were seeking to do the same thing, while a reported 2 have informed the objectors, mainly residents of North Andros and F&M supporters, that they do not plan to show up at tomorrow's hearing. When the hearing reconvenes on Friday, the presiding officer will hand down his ruling in the case of registered voter identified as VF. Shanique Miller, ZNS News.
Whether it's a fresh start or a jump start, the government wants more Bahamians to get small businesses going. And a more than $400,000 grant from the Inter-American Development Bank, supplemented by an additional $200,000 from government and other sources, is intended to help execute and sustain successful business plans. Through the Compete Caribbean program, experts and consultants will be engaged to help develop stronger small and medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs, for the best candidates in a sector which is growing.
If you look at what has happened under the Self-Starter program, where you have some 600 young people now who are engaged in business as a consequence of that, that speaks to what has happened in that small business community. Under the Jumpstart program, where we have now some 72 persons approved, but have, I can tell you, in excess of 500, much higher than 500 applicants, and probably about 200 of those would be approved, then you have also an indication. People are hungry to empower themselves through business development.
SMEs, defined now as businesses employing 20 people or less, represent about 90% of all licensed businesses in the country and 75% of Chamber of Commerce members. Chamber President Winston Roll says the challenges are evident in the statistics.
The whole dynamics of SMEs is such that, as the minister indicated, they come and they go. And that's one of the reasons why you would have seen previous efforts to establish specific associations of small businesses have had their challenges, because if you try to establish a association just built on small businesses, you may start off with a bang, but by the time as you get to membership renewals next year, a lot of your members aren't going to be there anymore.
By the time the 24-month needs assessment is complete, new SME legislation, a database, resource center, market access of Family Island SMEs in the tourism sector, and a business loan guarantee, a valuable assurance to both businesses and lenders, will begin to be formulated.
The idea is to be able to develop a program that the banks look at as mitigating risk. And so this is part of what the program will do.
Well, still to come in the Bahamas tonight, why the Attorney General's office is focusing on the trafficking of persons. That story is still to come.